Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
I would tell people, yeah, I'm playing a flat earth guy. And they'd be like, oh, do you believe in that? I'm like, how does that mean that? Is that an equivalent? I'm like, no, I'm active. Kind of a convoluted trail that I took, to be totally honest with you. And it's really important to have a good ego check. And I think that's where jiu-jitsu comes in, to be honest. The thing is, every day is a different day. There's a great degree of uncertainty about anything, and to say that you're certainly right about anything is, I think, foolish. I was having a full-fledged anxiety attack in the middle of this line. And she was like, I think you should pursue this as a profession. And hearing that was all I needed to say. I'm going to drop training altogether. I couldn't believe it because I
See you later, Lincoln.
Literally. This is Ben Darby, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio. You're not wrong. Get a mud plug.
See, we already got you. That's where your mind's at now. Well, we weren't thinking about mud floods prior to October of last year, but now it's all up in your brain.
Didn't even know of the existence, man. Now I'm educated.
You were talking about the rain and what have you. Have you experienced some bad fires since you've been in Colorado?
Not personally, thank goodness, but I mean, just these last few years in general, you see the fires and you see how the smoke even affected us last summer. Like, Colorado didn't get fires that bad, but when you saw like Utah and California, like when they were getting those fires and everything was blowing into here and like you couldn't even see the mountains, like that's not a good sign. And you know, those boulder fires that just happened, that's brutal. I mean, I knew plenty of people personally that had to evacuate or lost their homes, and just like, I don't have to deal with that. Obviously, no one does. So one of those things, like, I really would like to see some rain and just like not have to worry about that because it's scary.
Yeah, no, we could definitely always use the moisture. So I'm always grateful, like you said, when we do get some rain, and it's because they can get pretty nasty. We had a good year in Leadville, and same thing. It was just like, usually you walk out our front door and you could see Mount Massive and Mount Elbert, and the fire was over on the other side in Aspen, and you woke up one morning and it was just like, where to go?
Yeah, you're like, this ain't the view I came here for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's scary, man. It just is. It's just, you think about the prospect, you could just lose everything because, I mean, fire is destructive. So it's just one of those things. It's a reality. Like, it happened to my dad when he was a kid, and it's one of those things that I'm like, it's always in the back of my mind. Like, shoot, like, you just lose everything to a fire. So like, when it's dry, I love this nice weather, dude. Don't get me wrong, but when I see some rain, like, I'm gonna start doing the rain dance for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you go up here?
I've been here since 2008. I came here by way of Tampa Bay, Florida. So used to a lot more rain before coming here for sure.
All right. You prefer the mountains over the Sunshine State?
It's hard to say.
Or were you too young back then?
I was too young, but I just recently went back to kind of like, see everything again and see some family. And it's hard because I love the mountains and I do all kinds of mountain stuff here, hiking and things like that. But like, when I go to like Florida, especially like Latin Florida, and like experience all of that, like the food, the Cuban coffee, and just like the culture that it is, like, it's so cool. And like the beach, of course, that's a given. So all that stuff, like, I kind of like both. I kind of feel at home in both places, but I could honestly see myself living in either one. So it's I don't know. I can't answer that.
If you had to pick right now, gun to your head.
Gun to my head. If money wasn't an option, dude, I'd be living in Miami, Florida for sure.
I know, yeah.
I don't know how long I'd last, but
is there acting opportunity that way? Have you looked into that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm actually looking pretty soon to be doing to get some kind of representation down there because I have so much family there. It would be, somewhere I'd have lodging, and it'd be an excuse to go down there. So that's how I look for like representation. It's like, where do I want an excuse to travel to? So if I want an excuse to go there, I'll just try to get representation out there. And if I get booked, then great. I get to go out there and get paid to travel. So it's like a cool way to kind of set things up.
Where's do you just have rep on the West Coast right now? How's that working?
Yeah, I've got representation in a few cities around here. So like Denver, obviously, and then Kansas City, Salt Lake City, which is probably the busiest market I'm in right now. I just recently signed to Minneapolis and then Phoenix as well. So I try to bounce around there for right now.
Prior to Double Ripple, right? That's how we met, Double Ripple and Paper Clips. What was kind of your resume looking like prior to that? What was your kind of experience, and what has it looked like since we've wrapped on those shoots?
Yeah, let's be honest. Nothing theatrical before I came in. So you guys actually kind of gave me my first like really what I was looking for was actually like taking a character and portraying it because before that, anything I had done professionally was all commercial done. It's not commercial stuff. And I was, I had been classically trained and things like that, but at that point, I hadn't had any opportunities come up. And then I had seen the Double Ripple script coming through through our some group chat at my acting school, and I read the script and I was like, "What the fuck is going on? I love it." I sent an email. I think it was Eric's email at the time, and I was just like, "Hey, I saw that Emma is an open character. I'm in. Like, I wanted to see what I can do." And then you guys had me audition for it. You guys liked it, and then we went in. And I remember really taking a dive into the script and being like, "What is going on?" Because it was just so hard on paper at first. I just didn't understand like where you guys were coming from. But to answer your question, I'm doing it all over the place. Before that, it was all commercial, and since I've been working with you guys, I've booked some bigger stuff. It's still been mostly commercial because that's just what most of the work is. But I've been starting to get auditions for bigger and bigger things, which has been like a blast. So
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I want to unpack there. So I'm just gonna fire off what's at the top of my head and on the tip of my
Work your
tongue
way
first
down.
and foremost, and then we'll
Go.
work backwards from there. So when you saw the script, had you, and when you mentioned you had never heard of a mud flood before, were you did you have a conspiratorial mind at all? Like, was that something
yeah,
that,
for sure. Like
yeah,
I wouldn't say that I was like a big sorry to cut you off. I
no, you're
wasn't a
good.
big conspiracy theorist. I had a roommate in college who was like all in on conspiracy stuff. And like I was more honestly on the Mac side of things. Like I was always skeptical about stuff just because that's just how I think, right? I have a conspiratorial mind and but at the same time I also have a skeptical mind. So even though I want to go down those pathways, I always find myself being like, hold on, Ben, let's find like a rational way to explain this first. So I remember having these exact arguments like in college with my roommate at the time because he'd be like, dude, this is happening and it's because of this, and this guy's doing this, and you have no idea, and follow the money. And I'm like, dude, one step at a time. Like so like we would sit there and debate about stuff. But to be honest, I would just sit there and listen. 'Cause I'm like, look, whether this is true or not, it's interesting as hell. So I had had like my toes dipped into it, but I never did enough of my own research to where I was like, really well versed on a lot of the stuff, if that makes sense.
Right on. Yeah, no, I was just curious if you were into it at all, or if you had an open mind to it. I would imagine, I guess, part of being an actor is being able to take on any role, whether you're, kind of a believer in it or into it or anything. But I'm sure in this particular situation, it helps a little bit have some fun with it at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, right? Like you have to have an open mind with anything. Like if you think you have all the answers, A, you're no fun to talk to, and B, like you're not going to be you're not going to be very good at portraying another point of view. Like I think one of the most fun parts about acting is portraying something that you may never agree with. What if you're a serial killer? It doesn't mean you're actually going to kill people in real life, but you have to jump inside the head of someone and be like, why would someone want to kill a bunch of people? if you can't if you can't rationalize why they would, you're not going to portray that right. Same thing. Like a lot of people see conspiracy theorists as that level of bad for some reason. But so same thing. I would tell people, yeah, I'm playing a flat Earth guy, and they'd be like, "Oh, do you believe in that?" I'm like, how does that mean that? How is that an equivalent? I'm like, no, I'm acting like, it's one of those things. People can believe what they want, but while I'm on set, you better believe that I believe in all that, right? Like I have to. If I don't own that, then you're gonna see it on screen. It's like this guy doesn't believe his own bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like a fun element of kind of diving into any role.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like even within the conspiracy world itself, as air quotes conspiracy theorists, there's like levels to it where you can believe certain things, but you go too far if you believe it that the earth is flat or that it's not round, or there's levels to 9/11 where, okay, if you think that there were holograms and not planes, okay, now you've gone too far and you've overstepped that line. Or like there's things within JFK, and then even like within Bigfoot, there's people that think it's like a interdimensional being. Some people think it's a humanoid, and those people don't get along. So it's like all this weirdness, even within the people that believe the weird shit, like they infight themselves among each other. So it's, how are we supposed to get people to kind of buy into some of these things, or even just be inquisitive about it? Or like you said, it's fun to kind of like go down these sort of things and just entertain the what if to it. But these people with amongst themselves, they can't even get along. They shun each other from different organizations and stuff.
Right. As with anything, right? I mean, there people are tribal by nature, right? Like it's the same thing we see in politics, and it's not even like people think there's right versus left in politics. It's like within the right and within the left, you've got infighting, and take it out of politics. Any like the Star Wars fandom, you're gonna see people who are like, dude, the prequels are better, and dude,
Okay, Ben going on Star Wars.
I'm just saying, like, it works with literally everything. So obviously, when it comes to like, people have their identity and they attach ideas to their identity, which I think is honestly a mistake. Is when you formulate your identity based on ideas, because then when someone challenges those ideas, they're just challenging your person, and you're going to take it personally, right? You're going to have that emotional, visceral reaction. Where I wish more people could just like take any idea, whether they believe it or not, and look at it objectively. Right. So, and that's part of what helps you portray a role, or just be fun to talk to. Going back to that, like when you're talking to somebody who clearly, like, if you disagree with them, they're gonna be like, oh, you don't walk on eggshells around them, and they're not any fun to be around, and you usually don't have many friends, to be honest. Like, it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keeping an open mind, saying that you didn't really subscribe to any of this stuff when you got the script. One, was there anything that you got hip to that was maybe, I never even thought about that or knew about that? Was there anything that was too far out there for you? And was there where was kind of your inspiration for the character? Were you trying to pick me and Rich's brain when you were on set so you kind of get our way of things? Were you watching Eddie Bravo stuff? Like, where was your inspiration?
So, I mean, first of all, I remember distinctly reading the script the first time and being like, dude, like, because what you want to be able to do is like be able to be an expert on whatever your character's background is. And I'm like, I'm not like an I couldn't, like, if someone questioned me on this while I'm in character, I would not be able to defend myself at all. So I remember being like, emailing you, Jamie, and being like, hey, can we talk? And then we sat and talked for like an hour, and I'm like, and I'm breaking down every line. I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And you were like, well, this is from this is from this. And I had, by the end of that conversation, we talked for like an hour, I had a full page of stuff to go over. So like I'd never heard of things like the Philadelphia experiment. So I went and watched videos on that, read up on that, and the mud floods and things like that. So I'm like, whether I believe this or not, I need to be an expert on it. That way, when someone's like, why do you believe this, Emmett? I'm like, this is why, and this is why. Here's why you're stupid, because you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be, because that's what I'm doing to Mac, right? I'm like, Mac, you got such a small perspective. You're such a smart guy, but you're missing so much of it. You're seeing a small slice of the greater pie. So how can I see the greater pie? So I remember on set too, being like, I still don't quite get this. But beforehand, I mean, I had to do hours of, looking into this stuff to really have a background on it. If there was anything, I mean, I hate to say anything was too out there, because I'm a firm believer in, like, you don't know what you don't know. And like the more you learn about any subject, the more you realize you're ignorant in any subject. I learned that during my degree when I did my degree in college. And I learned that anytime I learn any kind of depth about anything, I'm like, there's a lot that I don't know. And there's a lot that the experts, the greatest experts, don't know. So there's a great degree of uncertainty about anything. And to say that you're certainly right about anything is, I think, foolish because someone's going to come in. Everyone thought Newton had gravity, right? And then Einstein said, psych, you know, that gravity, literally, everyone thought they knew what gravity was. And so if gravity can be questioned, then anything can.
And gravity in itself is still just a theory.
True. I mean, everything, literally, dude, literally everything, right? Physics at this point, because physics is the hardest science, dude. Like, and it's still, I mean, at the point right now, theoretical physics is all mathematical, right? You can't really demonstrate a lot of the concepts. So it's like, okay, right now we're just relying on math concepts. So it's like, what happens when somebody comes in and reformulates stuff? Because people do.
Science is never settled.
No, exactly. That's why I don't like when people are like scientism, like when people come in and they're like, look at the science when when it has to do with anything. I'm like, science is always changing, dude, and like it depends. Like you can prove a lot of things with science if you just skew data. So it's like who knows?
Was there any one particular concept or topic within the script in terms of the rabbit holes and stuff that you found most intriguing or kind of grabbed at your attention more than any other?
Oh man, that's tough because like every chunk of it was. So I would say the one that disturbed me the most was for sure the Philadelphia experiment, right? Because that's just so graphic. But that's not what intrigued me the most. I really liked the idea of like levels of consciousness. I thought that was really cool, and that's ideas that I've played with in the past, and it's like a different way. Like the way that this movie kind of explores them is different than the way I thought of them. So I would say that was like the most interesting for me because I had to like wrap my head around like a different way to like describe consciousness. In this case, it was consciousness like to turn on the sirens and stuff. But like still I got what it was getting at, right? Like, when he flicks Mac's third eye and all of a sudden he could see a lot more. I think that's kind of you could call that a psychedelic reference if you want, so that's kind of stuff that I thought was just cool to think about differently, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, appreciate it. So getting back to that original handful of questions, you mentioned you were, college and degree.
Cornhusker, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
respect.
Jordan Burroughs.
Yeah, James Green.
He's a bad man. Yes. Oh my gosh. Matt Linlin, all them bad dudes coming from Nebraska.
No
Yeah.
doubt. We actually had a former Nebraska coach on, Mark Cody. He's down at Presbyterian University now, but he came on right before Christmas. We had him on, so I guess acting school is something completely separate, or were you into theater and acting and stuff while you were at Nebraska?
No, so it's kind of a convoluted trail that I took, to be totally honest with you. So
We love convoluted trails.
Yeah, welcome to the convoluted
exactly.
radio.
I was gonna say, I think I'm on the right podcast for that. So when I started out, I originally thought that I always knew I wanted to like work for myself in some way, shape, or form, right? And fitness was something that I really gotten into. So, because I had done sports and things like that. And when I was really young, I was like a chubbier kid. And I remember like watching the Spider-Man movie and he like gets his powers. Then the next morning he like flexes in the mirror. He like notices he can see and then he flexes in the mirror and he's not like a scrawny kid anymore. He's like, oh, I got muscles now. And I remember when I was a kid, I was like, I want a moment like that. And so I started like looking
Going around trying to get bit by spiders.
Yeah, I was like, sweet, that one's got a red hourglass. I bet that means a spider. I bet that means I'll be Spider-Man. But that was what got me like into the fitness stuff. And like when I was in middle school, I was really interested in it. When I was in high school, I always thought training methods and stuff were cool. So when I went to college, I was like, I'm going to study that. I'm going to be like a trainer and do all that. And I had started working as a kickboxing fitness trainer when I was like 17 and I was in high school because I was done with track because I got injured out of track. So I was like, I need to do something else. I got into the martial arts and working as a kickboxing trainer. Did that, got my certified personal trainer's license when I was 19 in college. Worked as a personal trainer for a little bit. And then my last semester of college, I'd started my own business around personal training and particularly training for MMA athletes. And I loved it. I thought it was super fun, but at the same time, like I was in Nebraska. My whole book of business was in Nebraska, and I was like, I can't stay here. I'm just not happy here because I was acting on the side, and I thought it was fun. And I was like, I kind of like this better. And I was like, I don't know if training is going to be it for me. And during that same final semester, I needed a bunch of elective credits, and I had done an acting course at the Johnny Carson School of Performing Arts. And the teacher at the end of the semester just took me and was like, "Hey, look, like I think you're really talented at this. I think that this is what you need to pursue as a profession." And I was like, no one had ever told me that. I was just thought that was something I did on the side for fun, and I never thought it was going to be anything. And she was like, "I think you should pursue this as a profession." And hearing that was all I needed to say. I'm going to drop training altogether. I couldn't believe it because I
See you
spent
later,
so
Lincoln.
literally, dude. It took me 3 days. Literally, I had New Year's had happened, and on New Year's I remember having a bad night, being like, I don't want to stay in Nebraska anymore. I the next day tore everything down in my house, put everything I could into my little sedan, and anything that I couldn't put in my sedan, I left it behind. And then I just drove back to Colorado, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start getting representation, or more representations. All I had was Omaha at that time, and just you really pursuing this legitimately. I'm not gonna let that teacher down. Like I want to prove what she said right, because I mean I had spent years working on the training and all that, and the fact that I was ready to drop it so quick, because I kind of knew at that point like this isn't gonna be it. Nothing had quite made me feel in the zone or in the moment. And then once I started acting and doing like challenging stuff with that, I was like, okay, I'm hitting the flow state on a regular basis. Like nothing makes me do this except martial arts, right? And that's ultimately the origin story, right? Like it was ultimately like, I got to the end of college. I was like, this degree was pointless because I started a business in college and made my own income. The only time you need a degree is when you're trying to get a job. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm making my own income. I didn't need to spend whatever I spent on college to get to this point. And I feel like I just wasted a bunch of time. Like I'm not going to do anything the standard route anymore, right? Like I would rather die early and having done the cool stuff and like not regretting anything than get the 9 to 5 and make a consistent salary and know that like I've got a for sure paycheck. And that's ultimately been the last couple of years, just working on cultivating that.
You're speaking our language. I'd rather die than be average. That's how we live over here. So, do you now, having some hindsight after college, acting for a little bit, do you still regret kind of going to college for that, or do you kind of see that's kind of how you got your go into acting, and you probably educated yourself on kinesiology and the human system and all that?
It's hard to say you regret anything, right? Because there's things I took from college, right? Like I can say that I completed organic chemistry, right? Like that's cool. And I can say I studied anatomy with cadavers, and like, that gives you, the knowledge, like you said, the kinesiology. Like I can train myself a lot better. And like that's cool to know. For me, I guess it's more financial, right? Like college is absurdly overpriced because it's so easy to get loans for it. And because it's so accessible to get credit for it, it's like, of course you're gonna make it as expensive as possible. So it's more like I look back at that, and I guess if I were to choose an alternate route, I would have taken a mentor when I was 18 out of college, and just basically been their assistant, do whatever they want, get their coffee, wipe their ass, do whatever they ask me to do, and just learn by absorption. And start reading books, because I learned that, man, when I started reading books and like hanging out with mentors, I learned so much more than I did in my formal education. So do I regret it? It's hard to say that, because it's like you said, maybe I wouldn't have even like gotten into the acting stuff. The reason, honestly, I didn't say what actually got me into acting to start. Um, because the reason I got into acting to start was I was living in Lincoln, Nebraska for a summer, and I got bored. So I said, I'm going to submit to an agent, because I did my senior pictures in high school, and somebody was like, "Oh, you should do, modeling or whatever." And I was like, "No, that's stupid." But then I got so bored one summer, I was like, let's see what happens. So I just submitted to a couple of agents, and then an agent that I signed with was like, you should start acting, dude. You got a personality. And I was like, what? That was the first person to tell me, like, oh, like that was the first person to tell me something that I was like, oh, someone told me I could do this. So I don't know how I even got to there, but it was a path.
Not many people that could say they found their path through boredom.
I think that's the best way to find your path. Like,
Right?
where does your mind go, man? Like, because I'm sitting there in Nebraska, like I'm not 21 yet, so I can't even like go out. I thought for some reason being 21 was going to open the door to everything, and then I turned 21, and I was like, no, it doesn't. Um,
Hear
but
that.
at that time, I was just so bored in the summer, and I was just like, I need to do stuff. Like, I didn't. I'm too. I can't just like lay down and do nothing, right? Like, so that was just literally, like you said, the boredom led to it. But where does your mind go when you're doing nothing? I guess.
I think one of the important things you said there too is there was two people that believed in you, and I think that's the thing that I know I've had the same things. I know Rich has said the same things. Sometimes we see stuff in ourselves because no one else around us sees it, or maybe we'll say something to someone and they'll discourage it. But when someone like says that to you and you don't ask them or whatever, to me that's everything, and that's the reassurance in the universe, like you said, just saying, hey, you should go for this.
Yeah, it feels really good because I mean, one, you have to wonder, is this just the narcissistic element of the dark side of my personality telling me you're really good at this shit when actually you're not, right? Like you could think maybe like you're super good at something just because, that's like I said, everyone's got an inner narcissist somewhere. So maybe that's just where that expresses itself. But then when you get that, it's not all external validation, but when someone gives you that external validation, it's kind of nice. You're like, okay, like maybe I'm not a lunatic. Maybe I'm decent at this. Another thing is, where am I going with that? Um, I kind of lost my train of thought. What did you say before?
It happens.
Just someone reaffirming you, telling you, you're good enough, and you saying, you think you might be, but sometimes you're debating your ego and being a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to have that self-awareness, but it's also that's what it was. You know, the when you learn more about human nature and the people around you, you realize there's people that don't want to see you succeed, and that's a really hard truth to swallow. And the people that don't want to see you succeed. They might see you excel in an area, and they might tell you on purpose that you're not good at something, even though you are. But it makes them feel better to bring you down in that way because then you might not ever pursue it. And you see that in acting. And when I did stand-up comedy for a little bit, you saw that all the time where people would tell you, oh, you're not funny. Or, they'll just tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's your job to say, well, I'm going to do what I can. And then eventually somebody's going to appreciate, what you're doing, hopefully.
Yeah, there's a lot of crabs in the bucket mentality.
Exactly. Well, when you
A
go to
lot of
podcast,
different walks of life are all, like you said, stand-up comedy is a prime example of it too. Where you often hear them like telling stories on podcasts, like how ruthless they are to one another, and I would just imagine myself like getting in fistfights with
Yeah,
people because it's like you're just being a dickhead. Like,
dude,
like I don't need to have. I want to be around people that are trying to lift me up. And we had Nick Mitchell. He was the head coach at Grandview University Wrestling, and he made a really poignant comment that really stuck with me. And this was just about relationships. He said, "Is your girlfriend making you better?" You know what I mean? And that's the same kind of thing is like, I want to be around my friends or people work environment. Like, are you making me better? Are we trying to elevate each other in this situation? Because and there's that like TikTok going around now where it's like, if it's not fuck yes energy, like I don't have time for it. And it's that same kind of, with whoever you're hanging out with or whoever you're keeping company with. Like, if it's not elevating the situation or myself, like I just don't have time for it.
I love that. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with it. The hard part is in the beginning when you realize how many people you have to actually cut out. And
everyone.
then, right, exactly. You're like, wait, I don't have friends anymore. Like maybe I'm the asshole, right? I'm the common denominator
Yeah.
here. But then, you go through that period of loneliness and you find those right people. And it's like you said, people start lifting you up, and all of a sudden you have an exponential acceleration of your progress in life. And you're like, wow, I get so much more deep satisfaction and so much more time in the flow state in my life, which I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Your
it's the
vibe.
same thing, right? I mean, there's literally a million podcasts out there. It's the same thing. Like when you guys started this up, I'm sure there's people that were like, "Well, what are you guys gonna do different?" The people that are like, "Well, you guys aren't that." They might. Who knows what they said? I'm sure you guys heard the bunch of it, and here you are now. You've had some sweet guests on, and I mean, it's a fun show, and I don't know. It's just cool to see how other people do it too.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, for us, it's just an opportunity to get a free conversation with someone who you normally might have to pay like $500 to $1,000 to spend a few hours with at a conference or something. And luckily, you know, when we got into it, when we started at Met Media, you know, Jimmy has his college email address too, so it was kind of like a perfect storm of, hey, I'm a college student, I have a college radio show, and people were like, and that got the ball rolling, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're 160 episodes in, so now it's like we have a library, a catalog where, you know, people who might have, you know, big timed us previously because of our situation, now it's like, well, we've had X, Y, and Z on, and they have over 1 million followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So
Yeah, it's
that
huge,
helps.
right? Dude, yeah, no kidding. You're like, huh? But that's so, and this, it's like you said. I mean, just the conversations alone, you gotta lose track of time doing that. Like, I mean, you had John Fitch on one time. I've already talked to Jimmy about this probably twice or three times at this point. I'm like, dude, I was watching John Fitch when he was fighting GSP, dude. Like, that is so cool. And like the fact that you're bringing on people like that, that's so cool. So like, I'm on here. I'm like, I was in Double Ripple. That was pretty cool.
Well, I think to your point too, what you were saying is just going for things because you want to do them, not necessarily having an end game or anything. Like we didn't start this thinking we were going to be Joe Rogan. We were Joe Rogan fans and podcast fans that had loved podcasts for years and saw an opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling. And because of the podcast, we've made 2 films, right? I made a short doc on Rich last year, and the concept for Double Ripple, everything from Double Ripple came from here. So it just goes to, hey, do stuff that you like, that you're passionate about, and who knows what doors it's going to open. And, you know, now we're having this conversation because podcast was started and the film.
It's funny how that works out because I mean, I get this question all the time. They're like, so like, when are you going to Hollywood? And I'm like, never. Like, you know what I mean? Because like these so many people, when they think that you're doing like acting or maybe even filmmaking, they think that you want to go to the big time and have the big name. Like as a director, you know, it's like, do you want to be George Lucas? You know, do you want to be J.J. Abrams? Whatever. Or as an actor, it's like, do you want to be Brad Pitt? And it's like people don't realize like when you actually enjoy it, that's where you're gonna get the most out of it. Like there's a reason why like so many of these successful people end up being, you know, on drugs. Not that anybody that I named was, right? But a lot of people that make it to the Hollywood space or they make a lot of money doing something like you know, I've worked in sales and I see like lots of alcoholics in there. They make a ton of money. But it's like when you realize that money isn't the end game and like you're not gonna like bring it to the grave with you, you realize, okay, like I'm gonna let money take a back seat, and things like Hollywood and things like I'm gonna have the biggest podcast in the world start to take a back seat because you're like, well, if I'm not proud of what I'm doing and I'm not in the flow state while I'm doing it, then this is not worth pursuing.
Getting back to kind of what started out of boredom and a couple people saying, hey, you have potential here. This is something you should pursue, and you deciding like, I don't really want to invest much more into being a trainer. What was your first big kind of breakthrough into the industry? Was it a specific, a particular commercial that or shoot or whatever that you can remember?
Yeah, so the first thing I ever booked was a commercial for Metro Credit Union, and I was about as unprofessional as you could be on a set. So I was playing a loan officer in a bank, and I was like 20, and I didn't know anything about loans, which that was fine. I didn't have any speaking roles. I just had to pretend that I was giving a loan to this couple, and they were like, you know, smile while you're talking to them, and I was being such a smart ass. I was just like, you know, just like doing this super, you know, shit-eating grin while I'm like, oh, and loans, and then, and like I started laughing really hard, and then I started reciting my Chipotle order to the people to make it look like I was talking. And then I saw the commercial when it came out, and they only used the back of my head. And I was like, that's how you know you messed up when all they put in there is the back of your head. Like they cut out any shot at the front because they were like, this guy's an idiot. So that was like the first like professional shoot that I had worked on. And then from then, you know, I've been doing stuff since like the next like The big thing that I started becoming known for in Nebraska, which wasn't a good thing, was I did this commercial for DUIs. This actually comes around the double ripple, believe it or
Yeah, I
not.
was gonna say.
So I did this commercial where I'm a guy who had a DUI. So like I got into the car and I had to like blow into a breathalyzer. And because I blow into the breathalyzer, there's all these people looking in. And it's like the idea is like you feel like everybody's looking at you when you have to blow into a breathalyzer to like start your car. So there's all these people around the car looking at me like, and I blow into the breathalyzer and they pushed this ad hard, dude. Like I couldn't go out without somebody coming up to me and being like, dude, did you actually get a DUI? Or like, dude, you come up before my YouTube videos, dude. And I'm like, nice, dude, sweet. Like, you want a photo? Like, like
DUI guy.
exactly, like YouTube video ad guy. Like, fast forward to Double Ripple. I'm talking to Tim, who plays Mac in Double Ripple. He's like, dude, where have I seen you before? Were you in a commercial for were you in a commercial for DUIs for Drive Smart Nebraska? I was like, yes. How do you know that? And apparently he had like visited some family in Nebraska and had seen the commercial where I blow into the breathalyzer. So like that commercial followed me all the way here to Colorado.
That's crazy
awesome.
and awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google
Yeah.
search that.
So what is it?
Yeah.
What's been like? What's been your favorite product or something that you've done for like for your market or something that you've been like super psyched about getting a call for?
So I did a commercial for the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl last year, which was freaking sweet. So anyone who plays like PlayStation Uncharted, there's a game called Uncharted, and the main character is Nathan Drake. And they cast me to play Nathan Drake in this commercial. And I didn't even know I was an Xbox kid growing up, so I'd never played Uncharted, so I didn't know who this guy was. And I called a friend of mine who I knew would know. He's like, dude, you're playing Nathan Drake. Like he's a huge character, apparently. He's like one of the biggest PlayStation characters ever, apparently. So I did this commercial where I play Nathan Drake. They CGI'd me and all that, and then they put me in football gear. And the idea was I go from Nathan Drake, I run into the stadium, and I turn into one of the Fiesta Bowl players. So like that was just sweet. Being on a set for PlayStation and being like a lead character on such a big set was really cool. Like that's like always the one that pops into my head is like it's honestly mind blowing to get to have portrayed like that character. Now that I've looked into it and like they just made a movie about him with Tom Holland who played Nathan Drake, I was like, that's kind of cool, man.
Oh yeah.
Like that was like that was honestly like the big break of last year. Aside from Double Ripple, of course, but really that was like the thing. That was the call that I got. That I was like, what? Like it was so cool.
And that aired during the Super Bowl.
That was for the Fiesta Bowl. So
Fiesta
like it was
Bowl?
one of the college bowls. Yeah. So that was like what played right before they started the Fiesta Bowl.
That's cool,
was
dude.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you get a free PlayStation?
I wish. No, they were like, we're all out still.
So that was sort of what I was gonna ask. Have you got any crazy comps? Have you been on any sets where there was, I know we had MILF snacks, so I know that was some good catering. Have you had good catering, anything out of the ordinary, your own trailer or anything like that?
Honestly, any big set, you're gonna be taken really good care of, especially when you're in a lead role. Like in that PlayStation commercial, it was insane. I mean, you show up, they got breakfast burritos ready for you at 5:30 in the morning. They got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They got snacks ready for you all day. Coffee, anything you could want, they got. Like I remember, I kept slipping during like one of the shots because my shoes were slick and they had water on the floor, and I kept slipping and falling during one of the running things. And I'm like, hey, can I get another pair of shoes? And some guy just comes in a Segway with a brand new box of Nikes and just goes, "Yeah, put these on." I was like, "What?" And this last weekend, I was in Utah. I was playing William Clark. We were being Lewis and Clark for this series of commercials. And so the leads were Lewis and Clark. And it's the same thing. You know, you show up, they've got breakfast, and coffee, lunch, and dinner. Everything is taken. They take such good care of you on set. So honestly, in general, like sometimes they'll cover your travel, which is really cool. You get taken good care of, especially when you have a good agent that's looking out for you. I think it's really important, I would say, for actors to get a good agent because if not, I mean, it's really easy to, not get taken very good care of and actually get taken advantage of pretty significantly. So,
So having those weekends where you got, you're mentioning the Nikes and then there's a dude on the Segway, or, you're playing Lewis and Clark and you're dressed up as a cowboy, but they're giving you everything you want. Is it hard to go back to reality? Like, is it hard to go back to Monday after you have that highs, or do you just use those highs to keep on getting that next one?
It's a motivator, right? Here's the thing, like you have to go back to reality because as an actor, you experience so much failure that, those are for sure highs. And that's something in life that I struggle with in general, right? When you experience those highs, don't get so up there that like you let yourself just drop. But yes, it is. But then I remembered where was I before I flew out to Utah last week? I remember, but just before I got that call, the day of that morning, I just submitted my 56th audition for the year, and I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, am I wasting my time? Because 56 is a lot, and I was just like, dude, I might need to like wrap it up, or you think about that all the time. You always have self doubt, and then that afternoon, my agent calls me and says, "Hey, somebody wants to book you," and I was like, "Oh, thank Christ," you know what I mean? So yes, you get really high up there, and like you're hanging around. Like usually you're on a set full of actors too. It makes you feel cool and all that, and you get treated like royalty, and that's all cool. But then you come back and you realize, all right, I'm gonna get back to auditioning and getting rejected and going back to real life because especially in my position, like you haven't made it yet. Like you're not anything, and it's really important to have a good ego check. And I think that's where jujitsu comes in, to be honest. Like, yeah, I came back and then I went to jujitsu the following morning and got strangled. So you're hot shit, and then somebody comes and chokes me with my own clothes. So that's a really good way to, keep that in check. So I think you have to have ego balancing exercises on top of just a self-awareness, being like, hey, you're not all that, dude. Like, get back to it. Like wrestling, you guys bring a lot of wrestling coaches on. Same thing. Like you won a match. Congratulations. There's somebody else ready for you in the next set of the bracket.
Yeah. Well, talking about that sort of stuff and practicing jujitsu and martial arts and in between bookings, how do you
Mhm.
stay sharp? Are you doing acting classes, or is there like a theater in town or something? Are you just getting in front of the mirror, let's go champ, kind of talking to yourself and or filming yourself? How do you stay sharp?
I spent a lot of time looking in the mirror. No, I'm just kidding. I no, I'm registered at Peak Acting Studios in Centennial, Colorado. So I go there once a week, and I'll do scene study, and I work with another group of actors. And my teacher's pretty awesome, Cliff Wiseman, great guy. He's a professional actor. He's booked some really impressive credits. The dude was in Better Call Saul. Like he's a legit actor. So I really look up to him, and I really take his stuff seriously, because he reprimanded me about a month ago in class because I came totally unprepared and I deserved it. And like he laid into me for it, and I totally like. And from then, I've been a infinitely better actor since a month ago. Like it's something flipped ever since he did that, right? And on top of that, it's like you go to the acting class, you spend time around actors, but it's reading books and just being a well-versed person in general, right? Because like I'm reading about Da Vinci right now, and that guy he's known to be a painter, but that dude would dissect cadavers, right? Because he wanted to understand how the body worked and like what the muscles looked like so he could paint bodies more accurately. So for me, it's like, let me read about all kinds of different things, like read about psychology of personality and things like that, because that's going to feed into your acting, right? Have a good self-awareness, do things like meditation and martial arts, because that helps you know who you are. Because how can you mold your character? How can you mold your character into a character without knowing who you are? So I think it's a full-time job of, being the best version of yourself if you're going to actually succeed in being a good actor. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. There's some people in the Tataria realm that think characters like Leonardo da Vinci were made up.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I believe it, dude. Like, he is pretty unbelievable, right? Like, reading his biography has been nuts because this dude had achievements in everything, right? Anatomy, engineering, painting. Like, he basically was an expert in every field, and he was about 1 or 200 years ahead in terms of innovation. Like, he had ideas that they literally just couldn't execute because he was so far ahead, but they wound up getting executed a couple of 100 years later. I think that I don't know if I would say he didn't exist, but I would say there's people like him that get put on the planet that they have such an infinite impact. It's like the Pareto principle. Like they have such a disproportionate impact on the world that it changes the world. So, but he's inspiring, man. Like I look at his methods, like not that I'm even close to him in intellect, right? But I can still look at his methods and be like, this dude was interested in everything. He was curious about everything. Like the dude studied flight patterns of birds. He had a note in his book, in his like little notebook, that said, describe the tongue of a woodpecker. Like why, right? But it informed him and like what he did. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be curious about everything because that makes your art better. It makes your creation abilities better. So
Your curiosity is amazing, and I never really thought of it like that as a actor. Like, let's learn a little bit about everything because who knows what I'm going to need to take for this role. That's something I never thought of, and thanks for that point. Some things that I wanted to pick your brain on because I know you said double ripple and paper clips were your first theatric roles, and this was my first kind of bigger shoot. Yeah, it was a short film, but we had like 7 or 8 shoots. It was long. My prior to this, I think I had like a 1-day shoot and a doc I did with Rich. So learning a lot. Going in, did you notice, maybe when you're watching, maybe the scene at South High School and then our last couple scenes, did you notice a difference when you were in the film? Did you notice when you were acting that you were kind of getting sharper or some days you were off? What was that like for you doing a multiple day shoot in the
oh
character?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, every day is a different day, right? So there's different variables going into every. I remember one day in particular on set having a really bad day, and
At the church where we're getting shit on, right?
yeah, yep, exactly, and it had nothing to do with the bird shit, man. Like it was all me,
It
right?
had everything
I
to do
have,
with it for me.
yeah, you guys could use the bird shit excuse. I can't, dude. I just showed up off that day. And no, I have not said this to this day, and I'll say it publicly because I don't even care, right? At this point, like I had the longest of the entire film for me, and we had to do like 8 takes of it. I kept getting it wrong, and nobody knew this. I didn't say this on set. I didn't say this to anybody until probably weeks later. I was having a full-fledged anxiety attack in the middle of this line, and it was for no reason. It was just I was like I'd had a really long. It was only a Tuesday, and like I just had like a long week already. And on top of that, I'm trying to do a good job, and I'm putting all this pressure on myself to do a really good job for this line, and just in general, because I love and value doing a good job in this art. And my heart was stumping, and I can't think straight, and I can't remember this line, and I kept getting it wrong. I'm breathing, and we finally got it. But these are the things you got to deal with.
There was
But to be honest, that was the only day on set that I was like, something's off. I thought you guys were like super good to be honest. You guys kept saying you were a disorganized set, and I was like, I thought you guys did a great job. Like, could have been a lot worse, if you ask me.
there were some things in the edit I was picking up on just between you and Tim, like when you were going back to your marks, like you were breathing heavy and you were like saying shit to him, like, oh man, I can't get this. So and I was noticing, like I was picking up on it, but you usually have a pretty good poker face. So even when you were getting messed up, I could go and talk to you and you would
Yeah.
reaffirm me, you're good and we'll figure it out. But yeah, it's curious to hear that, right? I know there's certain matches in my career, like in your head you're breaking down, but then you go back and watch it, it doesn't look that bad in real time. So it must be one of those things for you, like, oh, all right, I must have fooled them because you can't tell in that scene, obviously, that there was things going on. But that was a learning
I
curve for
like
me.
how it came out in the edit, man. I was like, whoa, I thought I was doing a lot worse than that, like you said. So
Yeah, and that was a learning curve for me too. It's just prior to that day, you were on the money. I really didn't need to coach you up at all. It was, taking care of other things and worrying about other things. So that kind of took me out of my game. Like, oh, here's a player, here's an actor that usually is on point. Now it's your time as a coach or director to kind of bring them back. And that was a good way for me to kind of see, all right, now I have to do my job as a director and figure out a way how to coach Ben up. So
yeah.
learning experience for me as well.
Well, that's when I knew you were going to be a good director, right? Because like you felt like a damn coach, dude. Like, because at that point I was mentally not where I needed to be, and you got in my face. You said, "Look," and you gave me. I don't remember what exactly you said, but you gave me this pep talk, and you were like pointing at me, and I was like, all right, let's go. So it took me out of it quite a bit. It was a good thing because I remember starting to get it after that, but I needed somebody to get up in my face and say, look, like, get with it. And as soon as you did that, I was like, boom, okay, I feel that. Like, because I've worked with, directors need to have a level of assholery and not like asshole, like not like they're mean. People hear asshole and that means I'll mean, no, it's like you have to have an assertiveness to you, right? Like most directors I've worked with on a super professional set, like they're not very disagreeable, but they're disagreeable, right? They're going to be able to tell you how it is. And I think you had that ability. And I really enjoyed that about working with you because when you're working with a passive director who's a yes man, it's not making me better as an actor and it's not making the project move forward either. So I thought that was when I saw you direct that I was like, okay, like Jamie needs to direct again. I know like that may not be the original track you might have seen yourself doing, but I think that you've definitely got a talent for it.
Well, I appreciate that 100%, and I think that's something I learned. What you said is the director needs to kind of have final say, and I'll be honest with you, my eye for the frame, what's in the camera, has to develop a little bit better. It wasn't developed at all, and that goes back to me kind of just not having the experience. And when we're on set, being yeah, it's good, and then when I go in the edit, I'm like, oh, we don't have any of the takes that we need. And that was, I had some feedback from some people I sent the cut to, and they wanted to know, like, why didn't I use this? Why didn't I use that? Like, I was like, hey, anything you're thinking of, I've already thought. Just know everything you see is everything we had to use. Like I stretched it out and used everything we had, but you know how that goes too. It's just one of those things you don't realize what you need or what you need to improve on until you actually get in that situation and then have some tape or something to review.
You have to mess up, dude. That's one of those things. It's like you're never just gonna like learn all the theoretical stuff and be like, I got it. Like, no, you have to like I told you about the very first set that I worked on, like super unprofessional, and then I wound up getting commercial where all I had was the back of my head. Right? Like, but if I hadn't done that and like made an ass of myself, or if I hadn't been reprimanded by my acting teacher over a month ago, those moments in your life is like almost better for you than like when you kick ass. Because like, yeah, it's cool when someone says that was so good, but it's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing my same thing. But if you mess up and someone says you messed up, it's like, okay, what do I change to do better?
Well, it's like in jujitsu, right? You learn more from when someone really violates your arm in an arm bar, rather than choking out a white belt, right?
I hear that. I hear that big time. I had my elbow sprained last summer. Learned my lesson big time. So that really hits close to home.
It violates you. I had someone put me in a tight arm bar once, and it was like violate. It was like, oh, you could have just broke my elbow. Like, all right, I see how it is.
Yeah, but it's hard to have a big ego after somebody does that, especially when they're smaller than like or less athletic or both. It's like, oh, I have no good excuses. Like it's
Old
not
and
like, oh, he's
fat.
bigger than me. Yeah, right. That happens though. Like where somebody you're like, they're not athletic. Like they're shaped like a pear, and then you're like, yeah, talk about how they're shaped all you want, but they just whooped your ass, buddy. Like
Yeah, those are the little
it's
pelt
funny.
chokes you got to watch out for.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Ben, the one thing I wanted to ask you, because I really haven't had a conversation with you since the edits have come out,
Mhm.
sitting on paper clips and double ripple, kind of having this image in your head when you read the script and then you shoot it. What were the final products? Were they anything like you thought? Was paper clips like you expected it to be? Was double ripple completely different? Was it what I was talking about the whole time? I'm just curious what you thought of the final products and what you thought they were going to be.
So with double ripple specifically, to be honest with you, I never had any idea. Like I never had an image in my head because I spent so much time like when we would do our shots wondering like what is this going to look like? Like to be honest, I just waited on double ripple. I was just like, I just want to see what they do with it because I had no clue like where because we filmed out of order and like I had the script, but like I really wanted to master my scene for the day. So I kind of lost it, right? I had my scene and I knew where I was emotionally as a character and all that, but like Double Ripple, I never had an image in my head. So when it came out, I was like, this is cool, but like I had nothing to compare it to. Paperclips was more down, like more grounded. So like I had a better idea of kind of what it was gonna look like and how it was gonna play out. And like it was fun. It was funny. I wish on my part, I would have given a more energetic performance in that. Like, there's definitely things I know I would have done differently in both films. For me personally, I wouldn't say anything about the editing, but like things in my own performances, I know I would have done differently. But we had that conversation on the phone where it's like you're always going to think that, and you won't get better unless you think that. So Double Ripple, I was pretty hyped about how it came out. I was really surprised about the VFX. I couldn't believe like I didn't think you were gonna. I didn't think with the budget that we had, you were gonna be able to pull off some of the VFX that you did. So I thought that was pretty sweet.
That makes me
And
feel good.
no, for sure. And I love too, like, because I asked you how the reception was, and I love the fact that it's been overwhelmingly positive. Because one concern that I genuinely did have was that I thought that people were going to be really worried about the lore that it's inspired by, and people were going to look at it as propaganda instead of just a good time. And I'm glad that people look at it as a good time, and people have enjoyed it to this point. Because that was my concern. I was like, I really hope people see this like and just are entertained by it at least.
And I would say too, I thoroughly enjoyed Paper Clips. I thought that it made me laugh quite a few times. Your performance was really good, and just the whole kind of vibe of the office, depot type of environment, and just the sorts of creatures that you probably would have to deal with as an employee in that
That's
situation.
Yeah, anybody who's worked like anyone who's worked an entry level job has worked with people like that. So it was like that was a fun role to portray because it's like, okay, we've all had a bad day at work. My job today is to have a bad day at work. Like,
I can
in
do
Double
that.
Ripple, I was like, okay, I gotta save the planet. Like, I gotta shift somebody's consciousness today. So that was like a lot more like challenging in terms of like concept. But they were both uniquely fun. It was fun going back and forth between them because like I'm playing two totally different characters too. Because like Emmett's a more like domineering figure. He's a more dominant alpha type of guy, whereas like Justin in Paperclips is a lot more soft spoken and submissive. So like going back and forth between those two characters was honestly super fun too because it like made me shift into two different mindsets.
Yeah, no, and it was fun working on you. Those were the two films I worked on this year, obviously, and it was fun having you on set. And one thing I kind of took pride in was, we got a nom for best junior production, which means the world to me because if you look at the other crews, there were like 10 people plus. We had 4 people and 2 actors that were on every set, and 2 actors that were PAs and were NPCs and did anything we needed them to do. So I kind of take pride in our Bad News Bear crew, just kind of making it happen, showing up, no one kind of knowing what they were getting themselves into. Like you said, you read the script, you're like, man, there's a lot of conspiracy going on here. I hope people don't get lost. But I think with the music, with the VHX, there was just so many layers that it was able to kind of keep people focused. But yeah, I kind of love hearing that you had a good time and that you enjoyed both roles. And I liked having paper
That
clips.
was a blast.
Yeah.
That's the
It was like working with your friends. It was like working with your homies, working with you and Tim, and you guys came in and there might have been a divide between some of the crew, but you guys always brought us together. And when it was game time, we made it happen. I was kind of upset with Eric at first when he pitched paper clips because I thought we were gonna go all in on Double Ripple for the semester. But I was happy after we did it because it just gave us more time on set, more time to see things from a different perspective, and just we were at a store, is a little bit of an easier shoot, and just kind of a day to get 2 days of shooting in and get more experience under our belt.
Yeah, and you guys had to work together, right? Because you and Eric probably are going to work together more in the future. So like it's kind of cool that you guys got that experience together. Also, shout out to Tim. For anybody that doesn't know, like Tim had never acted before doing this, and I thought Tim like killed it.
Knocked out of the park.
Yeah, I remember because I reached out to Tim. I was like, "Hey, dude, can we like FaceTime for a while and like to build a chemistry?" 'Cause that way, we got on set, we had chemistry because we had talked for like an hour. And like Tim, I thought really brought it for Double Ripple. So like, huge shout out to Tim because he nailed it. It was fun.
Yeah, we lucked out on that one. That was kind of a last minute grab, and he was into it. I don't know if he kind of looked into the conspiracies prior, so knew what to say to me to kind of like intrigue me, but he was
Mhm.
into it from the get-go, and he brought it, and he was another, once we kind of got him in that groove, he was easily to coach and easy to keep them going. It was just, this is character. This is what you got to do. And after that first day in the Mason Hall, he was off to the races.
Oh, dude, the Tim F-bomb story is forever going to be one of my favorite on-set stories ever because I remember the first line that he had, we just couldn't get him to like say it naturally. And then I was like, dude, just say say it how you would say it. Just say, why the fuck does high school have a clock tower? Then he said it, nails that. But then he did that with all of his lines. So we had that blooper scene where he's like, where's your fucking DeLorean? I lost it. That's still one of my favorite like stories ever for me. So
my mom and my mom's name is Lorraine, hence the character's name. But my mom,
oh nice.
She said to me, she always gives me feedback, and she really liked it. And she said, the one thing I don't like though is you sure use fuck a lot. And I'm like, well, a lot of those were improv, a lot of those were written. You might think because it's me, but a lot of those weren't written.
Well, like the fuck it, I'll save the world on my own.
Yeah.
That was not that wasn't the original line. That's
it worked
for sure.
though.
Once we had said it twice, I was like, okay, well, it's R-rated or it's R-rated, so we might as well just go all the way with it.
Yeah, I wasn't ever really worried about that. I just think it's one of those things that you guys were around me. You guys kind of got a feel for how I talk and who I am. And I think that's how that stuff came out. Like we were talking about things and then the F-bombs start rolling.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for it. And I think that film had room for it. Like that film was not trying to be, some formal, like, I don't even know what you would call it, but like there's films when I don't know in paper clips, if you would have been like, excuse me, where's this ink? And I was like, go fuck yourself. Like that probably wouldn't have worked, right? But in Double Ripple, the vibe that Double Ripple had, it totally worked because it was basically Back to the Future, but like modernized and like to the nth degree on top of that. So it worked with the vibe of the film. So there's a time and a place, and I think it worked.
Absolutely. I got a special one for you. I know you're a Star Wars nerd. So what's your favorite Star Wars movies? What's your least favorite Star Wars movies?
Okay.
Who's your favorite character?
Oh man, these are all hard questions, but my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith. That might be controversial, but Revenge of the Sith for sure. My least favorite, anything that was 7 through 9. Those were garbage. I'll go on to the record saying that. Favorite character, man, when I was a kid, General Grievous for sure. But like honestly, it's hard to not think Anakin Skywalker is a super compelling character because like when you look at his character arc, man, like it's pretty relatable, and like the fact that he destroyed everything. It's a good tragedy when you look at the episodes 1 through 6. His arc is honestly pretty impressive, despite some of the bumps that happened in the prequels and all that. So yeah.
Right on. Here's a fun fact for you. The first movie I ever saw was Star Wars, and it was in the original.
Yeah.
It was in a drive-through.
That's how old he is.
I was going to say, do they even have those anymore?
There's a couple of them in Colorado for sure.
I wish they still had them.
Yeah, there's one in Buena Vista. They do like summers, and it's I think it's like Thursday through Sunday or Thursday through Monday, and they do like 1 or 2 movies a week. And like every week or every 2 weeks, they change the films. I can't remember if they're like new ones or if they're throwbacks, but it's called The Comanche.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, I'll know what I'm doing this summer then. Like...
Ben, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you take your coffee? No, how do you brew your coffee? I always mess that up. How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
So preferred method is going to be through the French press, and I drink my coffee black because I'm a psychopath.
Us too.
Right.
Yes.
Do you have any particular beans that you get down with or a roaster that you go to locally or order from?
Anytime I can go local, I do. Like I love local coffee shops. If I want to go like a branch, Scooters is like a national branch that like started off in Omaha, and they were all over Nebraska when I went to school out there. And we have Scooters in town now. So like Scooters, I'll go buy coffee from them all the time because they always get organic and like local farmers and things like that. It's super good. But anytime I can, anywhere that I travel to, I should find a local coffee shop because I love that. So.
And so when you travel or you go to a coffee shop, you're getting just a black drip, or do you get specialty? Do you do a pour over?
No, I usually do. I'll usually just do a drip black coffee. I want to
Okay.
see what you guys got, and I'm gonna use my connoisseurship that doesn't exist.
Right on. And so it's called Scooters. It's like a coffee shop, like a chain.
Yeah. Scooters started in Omaha, and they're all over Nebraska, dude. Just like when I was in college, I lived on it, and they were super reasonably priced. And like I said, they buy the coffee at market value, so they're not screwing over the farmers because that happens so often in the coffee industry. And Scooters prides themselves on paying the farmers a fair amount for their coffee, and you can still buy the bags for a reasonable amount. Usually, when all that happens, the bags end up being super expensive, but you can get a little 12-ounce bag for like $8.99, and it's really good. And they do all that on top of it. So
All right, I'm gonna have to put that on the list. It's
shout
good
out to
know.
Scooters, like
Yeah,
great little
shout out
free
to
press.
Scooters.
There you're gonna say Dutch Bros.
Stop it, dude. They don't even have coffee.
I don't go there for the coffee, dog.
You want a caramel macchiato? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, he came home talking about Dutch Bros. I'm like, well, Dutch Bros? Are you what?
All I remember is Jimmy being like, dude, look at the Dutch Bros over there. Tons of hot chicks. And I was like, nice. I was like, I know where we're going after set.
Where's Jimmy? He's at Dutch Bros.
He's got whipped cream
He's
all
supposed to
over
be
his
producing,
face.
but he's busy. He's networking.
Ben, do you have any daily habits or daily rituals, things that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
Yes. I try to read every morning. Usually coffee's accompanying that, but I try to read every single morning. And I've been this is harder to stay true to, but like meditation is big for me. So like I'll try to do meditation on gratitude and then some kind of manifestation. So, if you can be grateful for what you have and then try to picture where you want to be, you can think of what you're grateful for and how you can use the blessings that you have to manifest what you want in the future. So the meditation, the reading, and then obviously things like exercise, but that changes daily depending on, whether it's a jujitsu day or weight training or whatever it is. But some kind of exercise, meditation, and reading is always every day.
Right on. And so with the meditation, is that unguided, or do you have an app or something that you use? Are you tracking the time that you do it, or you do all that by feel?
Good question. I used to do guided, and now actually I play binaural beats at a manifestation and gratitude frequency, and I'll
I got
listen
some
to that.
stuff to send you.
I figured you would, and I remember seeing binaural beats in the script, the original script for Double Ripple, and being like, I do know
Well,
that.
so just so you know, there is binaural beats and solfeggio frequencies on every scene that are like you can't hear them. They're super, super subtle, but it's supposed to like mess with you.
I need to watch it with headphones then, because I bet it's
Yeah.
different when you with headphones.
I think I told Eric, I was like, I think I brainwashed myself, dude. I can't stop watching it.
You mentioned exercise too, and how that changes depending on the day. But you also mentioned that you used to be a track athlete. Do you ever do any trail running?
No, I actually don't run ever. I hike quite a bit,
Yep.
but to be honest, running is just not my jam. I like hiking and just really taking in the scenery of where I'm at. So usually I'm
Okay.
hiking and climbing on rocks and stuff like that, but no real running anymore. I'm not
All
built
right.
for endurance, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's my
Hiking's cool.
excuse.
Hiking's endurance.
Yeah, it's true. True.
So Ben, I'm gonna send you the Neville Goddard manifestation meditation. It's called "Living in the Wish Fulfilled." It's two binaural beats, so I think you'll like that one. And the
Yeah.
follow-up is, what are you listening to right now? Music, audiobooks? What are you reading? Podcast?
That's a lot. I listen to. I listen to podcasts a lot. Usually podcasts are on recommendation, right? So like somebody will send me a podcast usually and I'll listen to that. Usually it's somebody that I look up to will usually recommend a podcast, and I usually try to listen to that like when I'm driving. I do a lot of driving. So those are from all over the place. It'd be too many names to list. Obviously, Rogan's in there, but there's tons of others as well. Music wise, it depends on the mood, right? Like I'll listen to jazz if I'm trying to focus, binaural beats if I'm trying to meditate. There's all kinds of stuff. Audiobooks, I don't really do. I don't know if it's my ego and pride or if it's just I like paper books.
Good for
So
you.
like usually I don't do audiobooks. So usually when I'm listening to stuff, it's most of the time it's podcasts or it's a music that I'm trying to get into a mood for. Also, I'll give a shout out real quick for music actually. There's a channel on YouTube called Succession Studios, and they do a lot of classical music, like for like movie scores and stuff. They haven't been used in any films, but I love listening to that when I'm trying to do like an acting meditation, which is different than like a manifestation. But when I'm trying to like manifest emotions and like practice them, I like listening to music to help that. And Succession Studios has some super good like classical stuff that I like to listen to. So shout out to them.
Right on.
Check that out.
What about when you're working out? What kind of does that vary music wise depending on what sort of exercise or workout you're doing?
No, if I'm working out, it's trap music. And I know that's like way out of there. The only time I'm listening to trap music though is gonna be when I'm working out. I love the beats. I want to feel like a gorilla. I don't want to feel smart at all. If I'm working out, I want to be a stupid Neanderthal when I'm working out. So I'm gonna listen to music that makes me feel that way.
A lot
And
of
trap
Fetty
beat.
Wap.
Yeah, no, not that anyway. No, it's more stuff that breaks your car windows when you play it too loud.
Right on. I believe trap music was
DC, right?
originated in New Jersey.
New Jersey?
Really?
I think I remember seeing a Vice like one of those short documentaries on it, and it was like I think it was out of like Newark or Jersey City or one of those kind of like surrounding areas of New York City type of Jersey cities.
Yeah.
I'll have
You guys
to,
originate from New Jersey too, huh?
Jersey
that's
Shore,
right,
dog.
Jersey Shore.
Dude, like I still have the Jersey Shore look. You guys got rid of it. That's
I had no choice.
good for
It
you,
was
dude.
falling out, so I figured I might as well just shave it.
Well, that'll make your perceived IQ go up at least 20 points.
Sweet,
So,
I'll take it. I need all the help I can get there.
like,
uh, what's that?
likewise.
Yeah,
So,
you're doing all right. Don't you worry
Yeah.
about it. Ben, last one we got for you. So
good.
you mentioned when I asked you about double ripple and if you had a conspiratorial mind, and you mentioned that your roommate in college kind of would go down those rabbit holes, and you would entertain those sorts of thoughts.
Yeah.
And since double ripple, do you have a favorite conspiracy theory, one that you tend to maybe look into a little bit more frequently than others, or one that kind of intrigues you, or maybe may keep you up from time to time?
Oh, man, anything about and this isn't as out there as like what we went over in Double Ripple, but like anytime someone's talking about like things with central banks and things like that, that's when it kind of gets under my skin a little bit. I get scared about anything that involves finance and currency and controlling population through finance in general. That is usually what kind of scares me because that to me seems the most realistic. Because we've seen so many countless examples in history of coercion through financial leverage. So like anything that involves like banks and finance and things like that, like those are the conspiracies that I hear that I'm like, oof, those give me chills because it's very close to home. We all have a bank. Most of us have a bank. Like so that like to me is like it's boring, right? It's not like way out there. But like if you want to know what scares me the most viscerally, it's that for sure.
Okay. Have you ever read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
Uh-uh.
Do you read
So is that worth
PDFs?
the read?
Yeah, well, I mean, just knowing that you like to read, and then
Yeah.
also knowing that that's kind of what freaks you out but
Yeah.
interests you.
Yeah.
It's basically all about the creation of the Federal Reserve in the early 1900s with Woodrow Wilson.
Really? So
Yeah.
that sounds a lot more interesting than what I've read about it, because he's got about creatures in Jackal Island, right? rather than like financing wars and things.
Well, Jekyll Island, and Rich will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's an island off the coast of Georgia where they went and signed this treaty to kind of start off the Treasury,
The Federal
the
Reserve.
Federal Reserve. They did it like on a holiday.
It's like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. They all like jetted down, like under the cover of darkness kind of thing,
Right.
and without people really being aware of what they were doing. They signed these documents, and then it was with Woodrow Wilson. I think it was in like 1911 or 1913 that they enacted the Federal Reserve System, and so that's what's kind of what, touching on what you were talking about in terms of manipulation of currency and stuff, and how that really, at the end of the day, was what controls us.
That sounds like freaky too. That might be worth looking into, honestly. That's because I love reading about the history of finance in general. It's good. It's fun stuff to know.
Do you
Preacher on what island again?
Jekyll Island.
will you read a PDF or do you need like the book?
I usually do paper books.
All right, because I could
Just
send you the
because-
PDF. We have our own library of Alexandria here at Airey Bros Radio, where I've been curating some books, so I can just give you a share to a drive that's gonna blow your mind. That's in there, but
Fair enough. Well, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna be like, oh, you gave me a book. I'm not gonna read it because I only read paper books. I'm not I'm not that bad about it. If that's the way to access it, then I'm not gonna say no. Absolutely not.
all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to access it for free. You can obviously, spend a couple bucks and
You
get
can
the
print it out, too.
hardcover or print it out. But the gentleman who wrote it, his name is G. Edward Griffith, and
Okay.
he's kind of like, he's hosted it's called like Red Pill University, and so he's
Yeah.
kind of one of the OG of like conspiracy theorists from way back. And in the early 80s, it's like 83 or 84, he had Yuri Bezmenov, who was a former Russian KGB I don't want to say agent, but he was connected to the KGB, and he was the first one that started to talk about how like the Soviet Union or the Russians, their plan was to how to kind of crush an empire from the inside out, as opposed to like an actual war or like an invasion. It was just how they can dismantle it through over a couple of decades, from the inside out. And a lot of what in this interview, what they talk about is pretty much what we're seeing in front of our eyes right now. So
Yeah, finance and ideology and things like that. That's an interesting rabbit hole, actually. So, that gives me more stuff to worry about and read about.
Ben, thank you so much, dude. It's
Yeah.
rare
good seeing you.
that you get an actor that you be like, hey, dude, that dude's the homie, but you're the homie. I hope to work with you again, and thank you
Likewise.
for helping me make this a reality. I know this is a crazy vision that you're like, oh, I'll give it a go. Thank you for taking a risk. I think we did something pretty epic, and I had a hell of a time doing it.
Likewise, dude. Thank you for having me on here and also for letting me be a part of that, dude. That was super fun. The time flew by with this too. You guys are super good at this. So that's how you know you have good interviewers, is that the time flies by. So yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of that. Thanks for letting me be a part of this. That's all I got. I'm super grateful, guys.
Yeah, and when you're
So
big time and you need some entourage, just let us know. We're there for you. I'll be
Yeah.
your turtle any day of the week.
that'd be sweet. Just get some short skirts on too. That's
Ben, you the man, dog. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Ben. Have a good night.
That's good. Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Later.
Later.